Before we get into this episode, I just want to let y'all know it's sponsored by Prize Picks. Shout out Prize Picks.
To another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and we're here to talk about the NFL Combine, probably the biggest event before we actually get to the draft. Talk about some of the standout performances, a broken record, of course. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the guys that didn't participate, and I think that's it. But before we get into it, Matt, Theo, on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, how are you guys doing?
I'm pretty good. It is a beautiful Sunday afternoon. It's starting to get warmer. That first 65-degree day is incredibly special. As always, a reminder that no, winter is not a good season. It doesn't matter if it makes it easier to wear pants, which is an advantage. It being warm out just trumps all possible snow looking pretty or whatever other advantages you want to give the cold season.
Snow's only pretty for a little bit.
Right. And then you have to drive, and then it's not so pretty. So I'm happy it's getting warmer.
Same. Theo, how you hanging in there?
Pretty good. It's warm out here too, but I feel like I haven't even been through winter this year. It snowed on like 4 different occasions here in Denver, and that's it. So I kind of feel like we just had a long spring, and now it's rounding into summer, which I'm anticipating will be incredibly hot and uncomfortable this year. So I don't know. I don't know if it's good that it's getting warm. Yeah, we'll see. You don't want it to be too hot, which it's going to be this year.
I don't know. I like the heat. I'm a big fan.
You think you like the heat?
What do you mean?
You think you do?
I've been saying this every year for my entire life that I prefer the heat, and
you think you do.
No.
You think you prefer the heat. You really do.
All right.
You think you do.
Yeah.
Well, you're not. You haven't been out here though. You haven't been out in the real heat.
What do you mean I haven't been out in the real heat? We go to Vegas like twice a year.
And it sucks in Vegas when it's hot.
No, it doesn't. I think it's beautiful.
Heat being bad is about the longevity of it, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to be in it for 3 or 4 days. It's another
one thing to be in it in Vegas
true.
when you hop in an Uber that's been going and has the AC cranked, and the only time you spend outside is the walk there to the and you got a pool in your backyard and you're there for 3 days. That ain't a real heat. That's not a real hot summer.
All right, man. So when I go to Miami and I spend a week in Miami, like.
Yeah, it is different.
When if it's 110,
it absolutely is.
Yes, it's 110, and I love it.
It's absolutely different.
You think you love it. You think you do.
All right, man. All right. Well, let's talk about the NFL Combine. I think we should start off with some of the guys who did not participate, specifically the quarterbacks. I've been seeing a lot of people give Caleb shit for not participating, even though, you know, most of the quarterbacks didn't participate in anything. It just feels like Caleb's the only one getting any crap for it. And I think that's kind of a no. He's scared to compete. Honestly, the people that are giving Caleb crap about not wanting to compete and stuff, this is getting more annoying than like any amount of Caleb hype, I think.
Yeah, that guy who asked that question was incredibly unserious. That was one of the worst moments in recent sports media memory. Just like it was the first question off rip. Like it wasn't concisely stated. Like it's not gonna. I don't know what kind of answer that fantasy guy was like expecting to get from Caleb. Like I said, you ain't 60 minutes, buddy. Like this is not. Like I guess it is a kind of a valid question. Like why aren't you doing the drills? But to start it out with like, are you scared to compete?
Well, I first of all, I don't even know if it is a valid question. I keep thinking about how many guys actually have something to prove at the Combine to an extent where they actually can improve their draft stock. Caleb
guys
has
who can run fast 40s.
That's it, right? Like
that's what it feels like, man.
But like Caleb Williams has no chance to improve his draft stock.
No.
And if anything were to go wrong at all, any mildly inconvenient number and the media runs with it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, is Caleb Williams actually the top prospect? I don't know. You do anything wrong when you're as hyped up as Caleb is, and it would immediately backfire.
And I think it just sucks to train for. Like, you gotta learn how to get out of a sprinter's stance.
Yes.
In order to get your 40 to get just right. And like a lot of these quarterbacks don't have that skill set. So it's like, why would you spend all this time to train for it when you're going at worst to the Commanders at number 2? Like, why would you spend the time? And so he shows up, and same thing with Marvin Harrison and same thing with Brock Bowers. Is like, these guys aren't falling too far. Like, what are they going to prove? It's all over the tape. These are blue chip dudes. People call them divas or whatever. Jaden and May as well. Like, why aren't they running? Why aren't they running? It's like, maybe they are divas, man. They're elite athletes. They're like superstars. Like, it's okay.
I'd be a diva too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why would I do the same thing that the day 3 guys like have to do? Like, you can skip it. You're that good. It's all an audition process, right? And you have a fast track into the role. As like, you're not going to get these elite Hollywood. Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't have to audition like your average guy trying to make it in Hollywood does, because he's a proven commodity. And so these blue chippers, like, they don't have to go through all the combine stuff. It's pretty common sense. And I think it's not like a new thing either, that like top guys don't do all the workouts. Like Trevor Lawrence, what did he do a couple years ago? I guess it was COVID then, but
yeah, I don't think it particularly matters all that much. The combine is not super important in reality. It's cool to see people's measurements be super official. And, it's cool when an athletic guy does something really crazy, or one of the big guys like runs really well, or some of the throwing drills are cool. But in terms of like Caleb Williams running the 40, just irrelevant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Drake May, we know how fast they are, right? And I mean, I think it's getting to the point pretty clearly where receivers, now that it's not that bad for them to weigh super light, they're dropping weight to go run fast 40s. Receivers have been significantly lighter the last 3 years than on average, and they've been running significantly faster the last 3 years on average. Like Xavier Worthy, for example, super impressive, 4.21. At 165 is crazy. I mean, it makes him one of the lightest receiver. I mean, it's like Tutu Atwell off the top of my head.
This is what I've been thinking. This is what I've been thinking about. The number of guys that are in the NFL at all at that size is few and far between. The number of guys that are successful at that size is literally 0.
I don't think it's literally 0. I mean, Tank Dell, we said the same thing.
I guess that's fair. I guess Tank
Dell and Atwell didn't have a bad year either. It's also true that it being big maybe matters a little bit less than it used to.
I think teams are just getting better at like knowing how to use those guys. Like, how to.
I think the NFL just in general is getting lighter. Outside of some positions, like you see linebackers just not as heavy as they were. They just need to be able to move in space more. Mm-hmm. Not true for offensive and defensive linemen, but I guess players are becoming more specialized, and then the game's getting heavier, with the pass stuff. That it's just caused a lot of dudes to get lighter, and when the defense gets lighter, the offense can get lighter, and you want to be faster. So, I also think with RAS scores, I don't think they're like bogus or anything. They're obviously pretty predictive. The history of successful players who are sub 5 or whatever, it's bad, right? So it's right in some sense, but it also very heavily favors guys who are super light and just run well. Just because your height probably doesn't affect that. Your weight is one category, and then you have 3 categories based on your 40 time, and 2 categories based on your agility, and then 2 more based off vertical, which isn't necessarily helped by being light a ton, maybe as directly as 40, but if you're 300 pounds, you're not going to have the vertical that somebody who's 200 is. So I've always thought that those favor lighter guys a little bit, and we'll get into a certain player who I think is particularly geared that way who tested pretty incredibly in the RAS score. Not to hate on that at all, though. I like seeing that. I still think it's super interesting. I like messing around on the website and all that. But yeah, that was my takeaway. Is we say it every year, and I'm not the first person to say, combine doesn't matter, 40 times don't matter. We get to the combine, we get to the 40 times, and a lot of guys' draft stock has changed, even though we know that like wide receiver 40 time is not predictive of how good a player is going to be. So yeah. I don't blame anybody for not running it. Why, if you're not going to run a good 40 time, you have to train for months and months and months. And then if you can't do it, or it's like you're just not going to knock that last 1/10 of a second off, it's going to screw you up. No, I'm not doing that. I 100% agree with them. And I really like your point, Theo, of like that would suck to do. I think that all the time about different things in sports. Is like, man, that would be ass. It would suck to train for the combine. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to do that. However,
Josh Metellus responded to me when I said that on Twitter, the Vikings safety. He's like, it really does.
Yeah. It's just like, it's like so like, away from football, really.
Yes.
However, I do agree, Blaiden. I wish more people bench pressed. I wish more people did the bench press. Man. That's the cool one, bro, in my opinion.
I looked, so apparently the reason why is because it's like not the same day. Or maybe it's because it's like because it lines up weirdly with when they actually have to do their receiver drills. And so they're like, well, we don't want to have sore arms going into like the gauntlet.
That makes sense.
That's I was like, I get it,
sense, but like, and it's like so far off of like actual play strength, probably even more so than like 40 time is for play speed. However, it's just cool. And the defensive line record was only 34. I need actually 34 is pretty crazy. I don't know how that stacks up to like 15 years ago. Well, I feel like you always used to see, maybe not always. This is probably like me remembering my childhood through rose-colored glass. I feel like you used to see people push for 40 all the time, or that would used to be the thing. It's like you never see like, oh my God, look at this guy's bench press, unless it's like relative to the position that they play. Like Verse put up 31 reps. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is.
That was pretty nice. I know we're talking.
Oh, go ahead.
I know we're talking about how it's fine to not do any of the drills. I will be using a Dunze, doing every drill, including agility. Well, neighbors sat out to push it.
Oh, but did you know what I also really like bothers me about the combine, the interview questions in particular. It's like the players are going up there and saying what they know they're supposed to say. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when a player is like a receiver, for example, this was Roman Wilson, like, I like blocking. That's great, man, but like you cannot really take away anything from that. Of course they're going to say I like blocking. They're not going to be like, yeah, I hate blocking. I don't like doing any of the little things. I'm last one in, first one. It's like, you know?
Right. Let's talk about the interviews. The number of guys that said they don't believe in space or don't believe in the moon landing. Someone said they don't believe in pigeons. What are we talking? You guys are college educated people. What are we talking about?
The birds not real thing has survived an unbelievable amount of time. That was a thing like 10 years ago, I think. It's really, really.
It's the classic joke. It's the classic joke. And so when people say, "Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?" Like, people are conditioned for these answers, like the charged on power lines thing. Like that's been a meme forever when they say stuff like that. I appreciate Owens. Was it Tyler Owens, the name of the guy who said that he didn't believe in states? That one's straight. That was an original.
I don't believe.
I also checked out Owens's tape and thought it was kind of intriguing, honestly.
I was listening to the PFF NFL podcast, and they were saying something about how there used to be this running bit that you wanted your DBs to be stupid so that they didn't think in the play and they just reacted to what went on. So the question is like, if that still runs true, how high are these guys getting drafted? Because it was mostly the DBs that were saying this stuff.
it's good to have a crazy DB. I think they don't need to be living in reality. Again, they can. It's totally okay for a DB to think a pass that sailed 10 yards over the wide receiver's head was like their greatness that caused that, and they can stun. Like I feel like every DB would do that. So it's okay if they're a little got a couple screws loose, I feel like. But yeah, I thought that the interview portion of the combine was just funny. Obviously, we talked a bit about the Caleb question. Like guys are thinking it's 60 minutes, and it's just not. I think it's one where it's okay to be a little goofier at the combine with your questions than maybe the Super Bowl, just because they're not preparing for any game, and like they're kind of introducing themselves to fan bases, and as a class I think it's a little bit more important that you show off your personality. So I actually kind of like all the goofy questions at the combine, because you get a kind of a sense of who Roma Dunze is when he says, the plane is going down and all souls are perished, right? Like a lot of guys would probably be like, I'm landing it, no problem, and I'm taking off again, and I'm flying to Dubai. Like that's a lot of the athlete mentality. So for Rome to say like, oh yeah, no way I do that, I thought it was like an interesting personality quirk or whatever. And Adonai Mitchell saying, I love to cheat. I love cheating. I think that's all good stuff. So I actually do like the interview portion of it, and I endorse silly questions at the combine, honestly. But
that's fair.
Let's talk about some of these big performances. We've gone and looked at, I think, the tape of some of the big combine risers and seeing if the stock should match the testing. And let's talk a little bit more about Xavier Worthy to begin, because I think
I do want to.
Matt, I see you have something to say. So what were you raising?
In general, if a guy is like considered a day 3 dude or like a borderline, maybe a day 2 guy, and he goes and he puts up like the 10 RAS score, my question is not, how did everybody miss this guy? My question is, how is this guy this athletic and not more highly regarded? And typically, not always, but typically, it's pretty easy to find that reason rather than why, nobody in the scouting community is aware of some dude who is going to the combine. You feel me? That's in general. I'm not saying that applies to Worthy, because Worthy obviously is a little bit higher regarded than maybe some of the other dudes. But
you're saying that the listener can expect some cold water to be dumped on the combine hype in this episode, potentially.
Maybe on a few of them.
Maybe on a few of them.
Maybe.
Well, let's start with Worthy. 4.21 electric moment, like the fact that he ran again and the general reaction to him beating it, like the roar of the crowd, the groans when they gave him a false start.
Fact that there were 16,000 people there. That's really cool. I like that they allow that.
Yeah, I like that they did that as well. It's cool. There's just nothing the NFL can do that fans won't get hyped about. It's crazy, man. And like rightfully so, it is hype for whatever reason. But like no other major sports league has anybody care about the combine. The NBA has a combine. It's like, it's just not even remotely the same, or the draft with anywhere else. And people care about the draft in other leagues, but not like the NFL, man. So it's crazy to me.
Yeah, you go to the draft, it's an event.
But it's also worth saying, 4.21 with a 41-inch vertical as well. He tested pretty well in some other categories too.
And if you watch the simulcam of him next to John Ross when they ran their 40s, Worthy gets out with much more power than John Ross did. And I think that's interesting to note, is that I think Worthy, more so than just being fast, he's really explosive. And as much as like I am very, very low on the general idea of like the tiny receiver that runs really fast, like my basis for that is usually like, are you Devonta Smith? Because that to me is the baseline of that like undersized wide receiver. And he's not Devonta Smith to me, but at the same time, it's like the explosiveness is real enough, and he is like a true 99.99 percentile athlete for there to be like a pretty decent chance that like an NFL team will find a role for him. And Theo, I saw like a video you made on him, talking about like he does break tackles after the catch, and like he has a little bit more physicality than you would expect from someone his size. But Matt, to your point about the weight thing, like you're like, oh, his play weight might be different than like the weight he ran at. And like, that's like, I talked about this last year too, when we talked about like Nolan Smith, when he ran his 40, these schools like Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, they're going to produce fast 40 times because these aren't just like good football schools. They're like the best athletic schools in the country. So like they have great track programs, they have great basketball programs. So they're going to be able to teach their guys like in a 2-month span. It's like, oh yeah, this is how you're going to run your 40. This is how you're going to jump. This is the weight you need to get at to optimize all of those things. And like, that is how they're going to do that. So I'm not surprised that they had this so well. Like, because you saw A.D. Mitchell went and ran a great time
when
too.
A.D. Mitchell ran a 4.35, I knew
Yeah,
that Worthy was going to run something totally ridiculous because it's like these Texas guys are ready. But I want to talk about Worthy on film and like what we're seeing.
Yes.
And I do think that there's more to him than just the speed, which is nice. He can track the ball over his shoulder well. He does have that element of physicality to him with the ball in his hands. And I do think that there is some stuff to like about him as a route runner as well. He has the short area quickness as well as the long speed. He can change directions really in a flash. And there is some rocker steps and some misdirection, some head fakes when he's running these routes. I honestly came out of the film study a little lower on like the Texas offense and Quinyon, more so than the wide receivers. Like I just wasn't super moved. Like I thought they could have done a better job getting this super talented receiver duo more involved, which is crazy because they're, they put up great numbers, but I'm like, they could have put up even more. So I think that Worthy could be a very valid option to add to your starting lineup. However, the first round hype is a bridge too far for me when you're talking about someone who's 160 pounds and his plan versus press, it's inefficient. It's pretty bad. And he's just kind of hard to hit down the field. He doesn't have the catch radius. When he is open, he has struggled mightily with drops over the course of his career. And yeah, just when you're that light fighting for positioning, like you can be open down the field and it's tough to connect on those plays unless it's like a really perfect throw with the archetype that he is. So for me, like this idea that he has built his stock up into day one of the draft, I just don't know.
So many receivers this year. I agree 100%. And I think the idea of moving him up to first round consideration because of the 40 is like, that is the classic pitfall. That is like the number one well-known mistake that there is in the NFL combine, in the NFL draft. Receiver runs fast, we're going to take him high. We're going to take him high. Worthy is fast as hell, and he has a role in the NFL. But I agree, handles press poorly. I don't think his ball tracking is like next level or anything. And the problem is, on like a lot of underthrows, he doesn't have the power to fight back through another guy. He can stretch the field, but he can't do it from the outside at the NFL level, I wouldn't imagine. He's 165 pounds, There's absolutely a spot for him, but man, I look at this receiver class and it's like, if I want a crazy, crazy athlete, even, I mean, I could go get Brian Thomas Jr. or Mitchell or any of the top three guys. Or, I mean, there was plenty of other dudes who ran like crazy. 18 guys with an RAS score of a 9 or better. And that's not just like a bunch of random guys who we don't, this dude was going to go 7th round and he snuck into the combine and did that. Like more of the main guys than not tested incredibly well. It's a very athletic class. So I 100%
Leggett
agree
ran a
with you on
4.3.
Worthy.
Ladd ran a 4.3.
Leggett, just insane from him. But I agree with Worthy. I think there's just too many holes in his play style. It's like, with that speed, you can win down the field. And he's got enough juice other than just being fast and nothing else to win down the field. But there's a good amount of negatives there. When I look at how he wants to win at the NFL, it's just going to make it tough.
I had someone DM me and ask like if I would want the Browns to draft him at 52 because they're like, well, Ladd might be gone and And I don't know if Quinyon will be there. And I'm like, I'd be perfectly fine passing on him at that. Like maybe in the third round, I might
I think
consider.
52 is reasonable for him.
It's
I don't want to get
reasonable,
too
but
low
I don't
on
know.
him.
It's just like it's partly for me. It was also a little bit of Anthony Schwartz PTSD. I'm like, I don't want to just get another speed guy and then him not work out.
Yeah,
But
that can get you in trouble though. You know, like
I
we just
guess.
got a guy who is in this archetype. I want to avoid that next and go in a different direction. Like
You might just be shutting down options. I can't disagree with that. Although I do have one prediction after this combine or after these receivers run. Absolutely, no matter who the Chiefs draft at 32, people are going to, how did we possibly let Kansas City get insert this name at 32? It literally does not matter who it is, almost. Troy Franklin, any of the top three guys, hypothetically, Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd. Worthy, Quinyon, like, dude, it just makes no difference. So,
Matt, I know you want Ladd at 33 to the Panthers, but I fear he will be a Kansas City Chief at 32 because of that. Because you want him, he will now
might
be
well
a Kansas.
Yeah, that wouldn't be
time
bad.
was crazy.
He's nice.
Yeah, he is nice.
He's obviously going to be good. Obviously, he's going to be a good player, man.
Yeah.
He is
NFL level athlete, and he's just so good. He's so skilled. His breaks are so good. He's such a good route. Like, he's going to be nice.
One guy who had a pretty poor combine, I thought, was Troy Franklin, which disappointed me. We just talked about top 5 wide receivers, and he snuck into that number 5 spot. But his 10-yard split was really bad. And then during the gauntlet, you know, he was swerving all over the place. The ball was kind of pushing him around. I saw the GPS tracker, and it was like, yes, Keon Coleman ran a 4.640, but he ran the gauntlet like way smoother and actually got up to a higher top speed. I don't want to punish Franklin too much because I did like the film and he is like extremely fast and a good route runner. But he was one guy where I was like looking at the combine and I looked at how smooth, you know, Coleman, who I also looked running those kind of routes and drills, and Brian Thomas Jr., how fast he managed to run a faster time than Franklin. And I'm kind of close on like Franklin or Coleman or Thomas. And I'm like, I might have to adjust the ranks a little bit. That was the one guy where I was like, the combine might adjust how I order these guys who were already in a tier kind of together. And I don't want to like, maybe I'll go back and revisit all the film at some point, but that was the one guy from the receiver group that I thought about moving down the board was Troy Franklin after his combine.
The thing about Franklin that just kind of rubs me wrong as a receiver is just like, he's another guy that's lightweight. He has struggled tracking the ball at times. He had like a 10% drop rate. And I don't think he particularly deals with contact super well within his route, probably because of being a lighter receiver. It just doesn't feel like a great combination of negatives that'll...
Yeah, I know what you mean. I kind of feel the bad vibes with him too. I do like his releases like way more than Worthy if we're comparing like two speedsters there. Like even though Worthy broke the 40 time record, I'm not sure if I'm moving him above Troy Franklin, even though he kind of had a disappointing day because of like
how the start in the 40 is completely different than your like release in a route. It's like
yeah, exactly.
There's other football players on the field.
There's someone in your way that you have to get around.
Right. You can't get down in a 4-point block start.
Mm-hmm. But he was really the only one I was disappointed by from the receiver group. Adonai Mitchell had a fantastic, tested absolutely off the charts, which I thought he would. Like I said, I kind of gave him the boomer bust grade because he looks like a freak, but sometimes and same thing with Worthy, honestly. They both kind of can jog through their routes sometimes when they know they're not getting targeted. And we'll see like if NFL coaching staffs like that. I think because they both do it, Texas kind of gave them the green light, obviously, because it's something that I noticed with two separate players in the same receiving corps. So obviously they probably didn't get in too much trouble for it, but yeah, we'll see with how that works out. But I thought AD Mitchell, like, that's a guy I'd be very, very interested in adding. He's crazy. He's freaky.
He's explosive.
Like, he is super smooth and he adjusts to everything well. And he's a good route runner with tempo. And man, I was very excited to see his RAS card at the end of it all.
I got to hype up my guy, Brian Thomas Jr. for doing, basically the same thing. Weighing in at 210 with a 4.33. He was
schmoving.
He has damn near 50 pounds on Xavier Worthy. So, it's obviously getting in his speed range is going to be pretty tough, but damn, man. It's maybe just as impressive. And Leggett, same thing, dude. And all these guys are jumping 40 inches and and
that's what I'm saying. Leggett's
Brian Thomas 10-yard
220.
split was
He's the
100th of a
heaviest
second off of Xavier Worthy, yeah. And Leggett 220 running like that. I think he had the best speed score of any of the wide receivers by a pretty
220
wide
with a
margin.
4.39, I think, and he jumped 40 inches. Like, what are we talking about?
He does got
I tweet that out though, and someone was like, NBA players laughing watching 40-inch verticals in the NFL. It's like, well, my bad.
This ain't basketball.
This ain't basketball.
A 40-inch vertical is great for the NBA.
That's what
it is. It's great for the NBA, man. There's a lot of players who don't have 40-inch verticals. It's great no matter what. Don't get me wrong. Basketball players, like the top end dudes, are jumping higher than 40 inches. Yeah, but 40 inches, dude.
Yeah.
I really wonder what an NBA class would test like if you put them through all the combine drills. I don't think they would test like they do, but they don't. If you put them through the NFL drills, like obviously not the gauntlet, but like the vert and the shuttle and all these things that they could hypothetically do, like what kind of numbers would they be putting up, especially in the 40? I know that they have a combine, and I don't really know what it entails, but
what it looked like last year. Oh, this is all just the wingspans. I'll take a look, and I'm looking at the max vertical leaps of some of these guys, and there are 4 guys who went over 40 inches and maybe 10 guys who went over 38. 40-inch vertical is a 40-inch vertical, dude.
There were granted, a lot of guys
some
that
of
went
these
40
guys
inches.
are so tall, like it doesn't work the same. Like in the same way that, in the NFL, you'll weigh 300 pounds and like a 40-inch vertical is impossible. These guys, if you're like 7 feet, you're not jumping 40 inches most likely. So it's kind of like that. But 40 inches is good for the NBA. I don't know.
This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions over at Manscaped. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Clear out that winter bush with Manscaped's new Lawnmower 5.0 and watch your confidence bloom like the springtime flowers. Embrace the season and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our official offer. Go over to manscaped.com and use the code STAYHOT, all caps, all one word, for 20% off plus free shipping, because after I've started using Manscaped, I can say I have finally caught the spring fever. And of course, you hate making a mess. That's why they made this boy waterproof. Shave in the shower, in the bath, or even, if you really want to, in the ocean. So once again, go and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code STAYHOT. Again, that's all caps, all one word, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping for the best below the waist grooming in the world with the code STAYHOT at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little spring cleaning in your pants.
This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And they also now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. A couple weeks ago, I hit a big one on Prize Picks with my Browns versus Jets play with Njoku and Flacco and Brees Hall, and you can too. So head on over to Prize Picks, use the code STAYHOT, and they will double your first deposit, or prizepicks.com/stayhot and use code STAYHOT for a first deposit match up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Head on over there.
I don't know if we want to transition to another position, but if we're talking about like wingspans and stuff, Dallas Turner, man, that dude's got monster arms. And that might be, if you want to talk about like the potential for like who is the biggest winner, Dallas Turner might have a case, because there was a pretty tight race between like the edge guys as to like who's going to be edge one. And it's like someone kind of had to separate themselves. Chop Robinson was trying to, I know, to run, in the low fours for like a low 4.4. Latu, I know, needed to have a really good outing. But the one that really stood out was Dallas Turner with the fastest 40 time, jumped out the building, both on the vert and on the broad jump. And he has the longest arms in the class. I mean, he's just a total freak.
Yeah, I think that he was certainly one of the biggest winners, because you can look at the tape and he's got all the tools as a pass rusher. Like, he was already regarded as a first round prospect. And then a lot of these guys in front offices are just looking to draft the freakiest guys that there are for their coaching staff to develop. And Dallas Turner, like, absolutely was the freakiest edge rusher, even more so than Chop. And Chop has kind of the Yannick Ngakoue allegations against the run, right? Which I haven't really seen as much for Dallas Turner, although I do think that it exists, that, he's a little small as well. But yeah, certainly, I mean, the 40-inch vertical, the long ass arms, like, fast as hell.
Yeah, we talk about
he's a 5-star. He's young.
What are we talking about?
He was more productive than Chop. I think after the combine, it would be pretty tough to convince me that someone else is going to be edge one. I know that Verse had some great testing numbers, but his 3-cone was super stiff and slow, which I don't think anyone has those concerns about Dallas. So he's probably going to be the first guy off the board. And then on film, I don't know. I think that he's still, like, he has the long arms, but he is pretty light, and I don't think his speed to power is anything crazy. I know we watched a game of him where he was going up against a top left tackle, and he got locked for kind of a lot of the early portion of that game, and then started to make an impact towards the end. He's probably going to go a little higher than I would take him, but man, you watch him go through this workout and it becomes very understandable. He can win around the edge, he can cross a face, and he can win with speed to power. He's not a master at any of those things yet, but like, all three paths are very available to him. So yeah, I'm not the biggest Dallas Turner fan, but I mean, it's hard not to understand when you watch him go through the testing.
Right. I agree. I mean, I think you could still argue for Verse being edge one. His 3-cone wasn't great, but Turner didn't run one at all. I don't disagree with the stiffness, though. But I thought for the most part, most of the top edges came in doing about what we expected. I mean, Turner looked really athletic, so did Verse, so did Chop. Seemed about right to me. So I didn't have too many huge takeaways from that.
Yeah, what did Latu? Latu had a fine day. He ran decent, and he didn't do great on the broad or vertical.
I think Latu's big thing, if I'm remembering correctly, is he still needs a medical eval, right? For his neck.
I'm sure they got one at the combine.
But that's what I'm trying. I don't know if we have like a report on that, but I know that's going to be
those reports don't usually come out at the combine. I feel like they kind of trickle out in like the days following. So I don't know. Latu didn't have the test. He's not the athlete that Verse is. You can see that on tape. He's got the pass rush moves of like an NFL pro, which is pretty crazy coming out of school. But he didn't light up the combine, and I didn't really expect him to. He probably avoided disaster, but he didn't have like a crazy day. So yeah, Turner helped himself a lot, because no one else had the day that he had. Everybody has kind of holes you can poke in their performance but he does not. So another defensive line prospect that went crazy was Fiske out of FSU.
He
However,
moved very well. He moved very well, and it shows up on tape. He is incredibly quick for a guy his size, moving around like he does. There is no doubt about it. However,
this is one of the things that you're talking about, Matt, where like he moves around like a much smaller player because he is a smaller player.
Right.
And his weight and his arm length were bad at the combine. And to me, when I watch the film, like that's the main thing that
is exactly what happens. It is, you cannot, him being like 292 or whatever it was is maybe survivable. Maybe he's like an end and like a 3-4. Okay. But with the arms being as short as they are, 31 inches, came in as the shortest arms, second shortest arms of any defensive lineman. It's just very, very tough to survive. And you watch on the tape a lot of times where if, anybody can reset against him, it's game over. The speed to power is just hard to convert when you've got to lean so far to make contact with guys, or you've got to just be absolutely nuts with your hand fighting. And he's just not. It's a shame because I don't think, it's not his fault his arms are shorter, but it just makes things really, really tough. And at the pro level, it's only going to be worse, right? You see some of these guys measuring in with like 34, 35-inch arms. These are the type of dudes he's going to be going up against, right? And it's just too big of a disadvantage. The weight is just too big of a problem. He doesn't handle combos well.
No, not at all.
I'm not any higher on him than I would have been before.
No, I think that he's super overrated on Twitter right now because of the pre-draft process. I think he kind of needs to like jump the snap to make an impact on the play. I think that he just does not convert his speed to power at all, and he gets enveloped. And I know that he had a good Senior Bowl as well as a good combine, and his quickness was too much for a lot of these dudes to handle one-on-one. But the reality of the situation when you're playing defensive line is it's very rarely a pure one-on-one with a two-way go. Like there's always body presence somewhere else, and he just doesn't win a whole lot on his own unless he jumps the snap. And if you get hands-on with a combo, like he is moving down the field, like you can move him in the running game. And I watched his game against LSU and I thought he played really, really, really bad. And I said, like, man, this is not looking good for like the first round hype. And then people said, watch his game against Louisville, the ACC championship game. And he made a huge impact in that game. Like he had 2 sacks, he had some tackles for loss, but the sacks came because he ran a stunt with Verse and both guys went with Verse and he was free. And he like jumped a snap on like a trap play. So the guy didn't reach him in time and he got a big TFL, which is good, right? But it didn't involve him really beating anybody. And when they did get like a good double in on him, like they just moved him like a long ways. And I just don't really think he beats people. I really don't. And I see these FSU accounts being like, man, he was like a 6th round prospect before the Senior Bowl. I'm like, he looks like it, man. Like I get that he won at the Senior Bowl and everything, but he was a combine winner that I think should just stay a combine winner and not like a huge riser in the draft. Unfortunately, I was not. He was getting a bunch of hype on Twitter, and I watched the film, and I was like, he is one of my least favorite prospects that I've watched, unfortunately.
Tough.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was watching it thinking this is kind of like a center who can shoot, but he can't like rebound well or defend the interior well. And it's like, okay, well, it's good that at your size you can shoot like that. But if you are not doing the things that I need a center to do, a big guy to do, it's not helping me as much as you might think. And I feel the same way about him. Absolutely. On a stunt, it's crazy, man. He's really fast, and he really is super fast. His get off, great for a guy his size.
Yeah, he's quick. He's super quick.
Quickness
just doesn't really matter for you can put him at 3 tech and like make him the pass rusher, but he still has to deal with combos and like his arm over isn't going to be crazy. Like he's not like an Eric Armstead where he's got this length, right? He's just, I just don't know where you put him and have him make a huge impact. And I think when you're ranking the players on the Florida State defense, he's not like coming in too crazy high. I think they had a lot of players, and he was a good one, a good college player, but I think that his game doesn't really translate to the NFL level, unfortunately. So he was a combine winner and a Senior Bowl winner, but I don't think he's like a top 50 player in the draft or anything really
I
close
will
to
say
it.
this,
So
though, it really is crazy how fast he's going in that 40 man. I do get
he's
it a
moving.
little bit, man. You watch it. He's moving, dude.
4.78. I mean, he went faster than Sam Hartman.
Yeah, he could track down Sam Hartman if it came down to it, no doubt about it.
But to be fair, if Sam Hartman cut his hair, he might run a 4.6, you know. Looks like he was experiencing a little bit of drag on that run.
Not worth it at all.
No, don't cut the hair.
Yes, someone said he would lose his superpowers.
If he cuts the hair and shaves, he will be an undrafted free agent. He might be one anyway, but
he would definitely be at that point. I think one other position we need to talk about, we talked a little bit about the DB interviews off the top, but the combine performances themselves. Nate Wiggins, man, we just watched him recently on one of our live streams. He went 4.28. And I think we were noticing.
He was another one that like he dropped so much weight that it like
I mean, here's what killed me about it. It's like, okay, the part of Wiggins' game that we liked was the physicality, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the part that we maybe weren't so high on is like his burst, you know, when he's trying to react to a break, right? Now you can go and weigh 174 pounds and run a 4.28. And I mean, that's really good, man. I don't think he's a negative athlete whatsoever, of course, but it's just like not the player that he is. It's like, imagine if Leggett had gone out there and weighed 185 or something. Maybe not that drastic, but it's like, who is this? Is that really like, do you really weigh 174 pounds? Really?
Clemson had him weighed in for the season at 185.
Yeah, so, a 10-pound difference is pretty big. And even from 185, you'd honestly maybe want to go up a little bit for the NFL level. I mean, with some of the bigger guys. So I don't know what to think about that. I know he got hurt on his second run, which sucks. He's supposed to be good to go.
He got hurt on the 420. He got hurt on the 429.
428. Oh, okay. I thought he got hurt on the second.
Right. Yeah, it's tough to judge that. I don't really think of him as a combine winner or loser because he ran so fast, but like showing up light, running and getting hurt isn't exactly like
it's bizarre.
It's going to be like falling in love with. So I thought the DBs. I don't know. I think no one ran like Christian Gonzalez. I was like, I just kept thinking of my beautiful darling boy, Christian Gonzalez, and how sad I was that he got hurt.
And when I was watching Wiggins out there, I didn't think he was my darling at all. So I just don't know.
Yeah.
Where's my beautiful baby
DeJean
boy?
DeJean didn't test.
Yeah.
Terrion Arnold didn't test maybe as well as you thought, although I thought he looked really smooth running the drills. So I don't know. The DBs didn't move. Like all the safeties tested like horrible. Like the corner group was a little underwhelming, I thought, or guys were getting hurt or not testing like quite we thought. Quinyon Mitchell though, he looks very elite.
And he had a good Senior Bowl performance too.
He did. There's been nothing but good stuff for him this draft cycle.
Yeah, he's going to be off the board in the top 15 picks almost certainly, right? Like his tape is great. He's locking everybody down at the Senior Bowl, and now he's a freak athlete. It's like, yeah, he went to Toledo, but realistically, like all these teams need corners, and how many are going to be taking like I don't know, who's another guy who could go top 15? Like, are they going to be taking Brian Thomas above a guy like Quinyon Mitchell? Are they going to be taking a guy like Fontenot above a guy like
I mean, if
we
were
he had a very sneaky, great combine. I mean, 4.33 is about as fast as you need to be. Any faster than that is more just like that's cool rather than functional. He weighed at 195, which is like a real weight. And he put up 20 reps on the bench press, which is honestly
he
pretty
got
crazy,
on the
dude,
bench,
at 195.
Man. Hey, the fact that he got on the bench,
he's not scared.
That's all I need. That's what
I'm not saying that anybody else is.
I know he's
Mitchell
not.
is confirmed not.
Yeah. Yeah, he might be when you look at the body of work and all the boxes he checks, you might be looking at your board and saying like, "Damn, he's the sixth player on here," or something like that. Like
Yeah.
he has been crazy impressive this entire process. So he'll be our next live stream viewing. So
I mean,
yeah,
he
he
kind
had
of
a
has
huge
to
day.
be. He kind of has to be. Trying to think if what else have we not really?
I want
hit
to talk a bit
on?
about JJ McCarthy a little bit.
Oh, I guess we haven't really hit the quarterbacks, have we?
Outside of like the interview stuff,
Yeah.
I do not think that he is going as high as Twitter thinks. I'm seeing these things where it's like, oh, he could go 3, he could go 4, he could go 5. Like he's a lock for the top
It's
10.
reminding me of Malik Willis.
And I look and I think about
or of his
the
hype.
workout that he had,
Yeah.
and he missed throws out and to the left, which has been a reported problem with him, right? So he didn't have like this crazy workout or anything like that. He airmailed some throws. It wasn't like a CJ Stroud. He like hit everything right on the face mask like last year. And that's not the end of the world or anything, but he just didn't have a crazy good workout. And then I see like Peter Schrager come on after this happens, being like, reading a text from a GM, McCarthy spun it and had a great workout. And he says that on NFL Network, and then it gets aggregated by all these accounts like NFL teams loved McCarthy's combine. And it's like he just didn't have like, I don't know what evaluator worth their salt would like watch that and be completely enamored, but all the hype coming out of that workout was like good from the media, right? And I just don't know if I was a decision maker, I don't think I would be saying all this stuff about JJ McCarthy. Like, oh, he's great. Like, I love him top 4. If he was my guy, I'd keep that like close to the vest, right? Like, you wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, that's our franchise quarterback, just all willy nilly. But that's like what all the reporting is. So I just don't. I think that it's kind of like he's a very personable guy who just won the national championship. Like, he is a star prospect. So I do think like the media kind of latches onto him as like the main character of the whole draft. And I just don't think that when it comes down to it, the NFL teams will be as high as the media is currently reporting. Like, I think that they're of course going to say that because he's JJ McCarthy. And I look at Malik Willis and all the hype that he got, that he's going top 5, no doubt about it, especially
Levis.
after the combine. Like, he threw amazing, like Levis.
Happens every year, pretty much.
Happens every year. I think with Fields fell like farther than you think. I remember Mac Jones, like when the 49ers traded up, like the smoke got so huge that like Mac Jones, evaluators love him. He could go as high as like,
Mac
and then he
went in the
falls a little
first round.
bit. He still went pretty high. And then Haskins too, like a while ago, was regarded as like this top tier prospect. And then he like wasn't viewed as a franchise quarter, and he started to slip into the middle of the first round. Like, I feel like the last 4 drafts, this guy who's regarded as like a top 10 lock falls, like maybe it's just out of the top 10, maybe it's out of the first round entirely. But I feel like every year these quarterbacks, the media latches onto them and tells all the fans all about them and gets these texts from these scouts like, man, he has a real shot. And then it comes time for the draft, and it's time to actually like make the leap. Like, this guy's your franchise quarterback. And then teams just aren't as enamored with doing it as
and then it gets
played up as during the process. And I just feel like that's happening with McCarthy right now.
And then it gets down to, you have the 5th pick and you can go with like a surefire lock, fantastic receiver, or a really crazy dice roll.
That's what I'm saying. If you pick McCarthy over like Roma Dunze, get out the building. Like, stop.
Yeah, like Rome is just a better prospect by a lot than JJ McCarthy. He just is. And I just don't think that I just don't think the hype is necessarily all real right now. I think that it's being played up a little bit because he's back, and then no one else is testing, right? Like, Caleb isn't there, like May isn't there. Like, they got to talk about these quarterbacks, man. They got to say like, this is a franchise guy. Like, look at the big star, and it's JJ.
Hey, no one's talking about Penix.
Yeah, and it's like, did Penix have a? No one talked to Penix. Like he wasn't in the booth. Like
Yeah.
they were during a lot of his workout. All the buzz was about Xavier Worthy's 40, and so he goes through his workout, and it's like I don't see the same hype. But could an NFL front office look at his tape and say that's better than JJ McCarthy? Yes. Could a team look at his workout and say that was better than JJ McCarthy's workout? Yes. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not convinced. I look at, and again, like, oh, JJ is so toolsy. And it's like, how toolsy is he compared to the other guys? Is he toolsier than May? Is he toolsier than Caleb? Is he toolsier than Daniels? Is he toolsier than like Milton? No. So he's not like this great, like he's definitely toolsy a little bit and athletic, but is he crazy like as a lump of clay to work with? Like not even that. So I'm fading the hype on how high he could go. I think he could go in the first round, no doubt about it, but I don't think like he's in play for the Patriots at number 3, like the reports are saying.
No, and I tend to agree with you. I also think a lot of it might be if you're the Patriots at 3 or something, why wouldn't you say that you're considering, McCarthy at 3 or Daniels at 3? If it starts to seem like, a team really might be falling in love with him or teams are really considering that, it's in your best interest, just as far as fielding trades goes, that it looks like everything is a real possibility for you. And you can scare as many teams as possible, right? And on top of that, I really agree that we overestimate quarterback positional value and how much it matters in the draft. And that
because if it's not
like,
a good one, then it
yes,
doesn't. Then you're just bad, right?
But if they're not really a top tier prospect, like okay, who's a better prospect, Marvin Harrison or Drake May? Marvin Harrison, but Drake May is also really, really good. So quarterback, value is going to take over there. It doesn't extend to guys who are not even in the same, stratosphere. Rome Odunze versus McCarthy, and I guess McCarthy could go over Odunze. It's not impossible. But man, it would be tough for a lot of teams. And I think part of the reason why the media likes to hype these guys up so much is because a lot of fans need to believe that. Like if you're, I don't know, what's an example? Like a Broncos fan, which I think they could really be in love with McCarthy and take him maybe in the first round, maybe in the second, who knows? Or I guess they don't have a second round pick, but trade or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're like, well, realistically, McCarthy is not a franchise guy, and Daniels is going to go before we pick, so we have no quarterback option whatsoever. It's like that just can't be, because then we'll be bad next year. So one of these guys has got to be it, and I just don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think it's a bad quarterback draft class overall. I saw some people talking about that. I think this quarterback draft class is strong based solely off Caleb Williams and Drake May. I think both those guys are going to be good. I'm really high on them, and I think most drafts don't have two guys that level. Plus, there's other dudes to pick, which is more than you can say for a lot of drafts. But I agree. It would not shock me. It would not shock me if it was Drake May, Caleb Williams in the top 10, Daniels somewhere around that borderline, and then maybe one more guy late. That would not shock me at all. And maybe it's just the top 3 and that's it. So I'm on board with that.
Yeah. And I think about like what analyst seriously considers like well-regarded analyst, like has a crazy high grade on McCarthy. No one that I can think of. And I know Derek Klassen charted like all of his accuracy on a bunch of different throws, and the only one that was like above average was the screen. So it's like these scouting departments have the same, like they're gonna see that he's not like crazy accurate on any of these like routes. Like and it was the same thing with Levis last year. Like who loved Levis? Like we all kind of liked him, and there are plenty of people who were like liked him, but no one was like, oh, he needs to be the 4th overall pick.
He's also
the table for him.
It was the entire different thing, though. Well, first off, he did come on and do an interview, so we were biased. But second off, people hated Levis's guts with an insane passion, largely because most of the time, what the fan community thought process is like if a guy produces well in college, or he wins a lot in college, which I guess would be the case with McCarthy, then obviously he should go very high. And how stupid the NFL draft. They're overthinking it. This has become everyone's new favorite thing to say. They're overthinking it. Whereas if a guy doesn't produce a lot in college, how stupid are they? I already saw him in college. He wasn't good, but he's going to be good in the pros. And then when it doesn't work out, it's like, oh, see, I told you. And then when it does, that's the exception or whatever. Not everybody's Josh Allen, right? You know, what did they tell us about Josh Allen when he was getting drafted?
Right.
But anyway, I just think like, no one is willing to put their cards on the table and be like, except for like Kurt Benkert probably, and willing to say like, oh yeah, JJ McCarthy is like top 5 among serious analysts. And so, but yet apparently the NFL teams are like all enamored. I just don't think it passes the smell test. And that was the other. And again, like, I just thought his workout was like fine. And then of course, like it's Daniel Jeremiah in the booth. Like, I just got a text from a scout. Greatest performance, like great performance from JJ McCarthy. And it's like, it was okay. It was just okay. Like you had to talk about the quarterback. You had to talk about the potential first round guy, and no one else is like doing it. And shout out JJ for doing it, I guess. But I just don't know if he's quite what the broadcast is making him out to be. I think they kind of have to in some respects. So that is my big prediction about JJ McCarthy, is that he's not actually getting the top 5 or 10 hype that the media is pushing right now. So
that's fair. One more thing before we get out. Spencer Rattler, very, very slow.
I don't know, man.
He's up next. Gamecock legend. Rattler is he had some good games. That Tennessee game, he played well. I mean, he threw some picks. I'll say that. Shout out to him. I would have stayed another year, me personally, but Seller's up next. It's all good.
Slovis didn't have a good workout. He was missing some bad ones. Like I said on Twitter, Slovis Hive has got to be down horrendous. And a couple people said, like, we've been down horrendous for a couple of years, man. We'll always have his freshman year. I saw a PFF graphic that was like projecting him to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2022 draft.
Yeah, bro. I play in a dynasty league that does a Devi draft, so it drafts guys like in college. It has like 2 copies. And maybe like 3 years ago, dude, he was like the 2nd overall pick in like a startup.
Oh,
so
no.
it was like everybody was on the board, man.
The Slovis fantasy owners were not having a good combine.
What are we doing?
The 2nd overall pick on him 2 years ago, and he's like
stuff,
airmailing throws at the combine.
That's what
2
always
years
kills
later,
me
it's
about
like
this.
That's
oh
funny.
my God.
My friend had an interesting prediction. He says Sam Hartman to the Bengals is going to happen, and it's going to be a very over talked about Joe Burrow, Sam Hartman, handsome off conversation. He says it's just a gut check. I tend to agree. I think he's right. No, this is another buddy of mine.
There's going to be something with him, man. He was the only quarterback of his group to run his 40. So like he ran it and then just went back and ran it again. I'm like, why is he just finding himself in this situation?
But
again,
he tested,
like,
the worst of all the quarterbacks.
He clearly had bad arm strength when he was like throwing like too. But I just can't shake the feeling. Again, like it looks like a character from a video game cutscene when they like go through these other NPC quarterbacks and then they like show him. I'm like, maybe this is just pretty privileged, but I just get the feeling like
almost
he's gonna just be showing
you are
up.
100% confident that it is. You're like, he sucks. Yeah, he tested bad and he looked bad and his arm strength's bad and it was he was the lowest
Sam
of like everything, bro.
Sam Hartman is like the guy
too gorgeous
and nothing else. But it's like, but there's just something about him. And it's just that, that's it. That's like all it is, bro.
Sam Hartman is like
I swear
the
that I
video
saw
game
him.
character, but you miss the quick time event. They tell you to press X, you press circle, and you miss the throw. That's
well,
Sam
I've seen him stand in the pocket and step up and make some pro level throws. He's got like there is things on the field where I like think that he's just good enough with the instructor stuff where I think like a coaching staff will like him. Like he sets a strong pocket. He can climb and, you know, watch his game against Duke, and when he wills his team to victory against the end to the at the end of the game, you'll see what I mean. There's some stuff on tape there. There's some stuff on tape. When I was watching Alt, I was like, man, he doesn't even need to worry about Hartman like escape. Like Hartman is just like 5 yards deep in the pocket and stepping up, and like it's making life easy for Alt here and delivering some throws. I was like, this is kind of nice. But like, again, like the arm strength, he'll force like a couple horrible decisions. Like he's not like good, but I don't know. There's just barely enough good things with the pretty privilege that I'm like, let's go. He's got that Brock Purdy main character energy that I saw at Iowa State.
Yeah, man. I guess that's fair.
I can't disagree.
So he's gonna get drafted to the Patriots, and they're gonna win a Super Bowl with them, and
he's gonna get drafted to like, I don't know.
He'll be on a team.
He's gonna get drafted to like the Jaguars, and then Lawrence is gonna get hurt for a game, and then like everyone, like people
and
are
he'll have like a 4 dot, but put up like 250 yards somehow.
And
I'm actually. There's a very difficult conversation.
What has Lawrence actually accomplished? Like that is the future I'm imagining with Hartman, which I guess happened to like every backup quarterback this year. It felt like, so maybe this isn't even a hot take. Like the backup goes in and people hype him up. Like the odds that happens to you at some point as a backup quarterback seems to be like 80%. So maybe it's not even a hot take.
Unless your name's Matt Corral, of course, in which case you never get a chance. Then you never get a chance. You have to go to the UFL and prove yourself there.
What Blaiden calling you a first-round pick does to an MF.
When he wins UFL MVP, then we'll see who's talking. All right, then we'll see who's talking.
Yeah, I mean. Maybe.
Hey, maybe. But I think that's all we have for today. Just some combine talk. We'll be back, of course, with another live stream on Tuesday. We'll talk about Quinyon Mitchell. That seems to be the guy that we're aiming to look at out of Toledo. Should be a fun watch. And then we'll come back with another probably team blueprint episode later in the week, and we'll get back to more draft prospect stuff going forward. But thank you
I have one more combine winner.
Okay.
I have one more combine winner.
All right.
I do like the Louisville running back, Isaac Guerendo.
I couldn't find any film to watch.
I could barely. I botched that last name so badly. I'm so sorry, Isaac.
Yeah.
But he has been in college for a long time, and he was a backup at Louisville. So I don't think you can take him too crazy high. But I did kind of like his film. He had the speed to bounce it outside and get around the edge, right? But he also has a good build. Like he's 6'1", 220 or 2. Is he 220? Yeah, he's 221. So he's plenty big, and he's got the speed to break it, like the home run speed. And then he kind of can contort his body and like make his surface area tough to get a good shot into. So he like through the middle at the first and second level, like he can kind of squeeze through these little openings. I liked the starter there too a lot, who I didn't really look at as much as him because the starter didn't win the combine like 23 did. But I did like the Louisville runner, and as a guy who won the combine, I liked him more than like Fiske, for example. I thought that he was pretty legit. So.
Oh, and Theo Johnson, we've talked about before.
Yes.
He had a great combine. He's a good player.
He's nice as well.
He can really block. He's got good hands, and he's got some juice. We saw in the one-on-ones and the Senior Bowls. I mean, if he was there, like if he was like a late third, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But that's a guy we already liked, and he didn't produce a lot in college, but you can kind of excuse that because he played for Penn State.
And also one more thing I want to say, I've been tracking this over the course of our podcast here. It just went final. Boston Celtics 140, Golden State Warriors 88.
88. Not good.
Oh my God.
Not good at all. Yeah, that halftime
speaking of Penn State, their corner Who's the corner that we saw getting cooked? Kalen King getting cooked at the Senior Bowl all week. When we're in Vegas, we're watching Senior Bowl film, and Kalen King keeps getting shredded in every single one-on-one. And sure enough, he has a terrible combine performance.
Yeah, that
too.
Shaun Wade fall off.
It really bizarre.
Shaun Wade
really
was
bizarre
always...
from him. He was so good. His sophomore, junior, like his second, like not this last season, but the one before that, he was phenomenal, man. He was such a baller.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know either, but
hard to say. He also, I think, had a crazy quote, didn't he? Was he one of the ones that said like he didn't believe in pigeons or something?
Well, that's something that everybody says when they think the birds aren't real. Like, have you ever seen a baby pigeon? Again, that's not crazy. Like, I could go to the ASU dorms and everyone would say that. And everyone did say that to me when they find out that I like bird watching. I've never seen a baby pigeon.
Oh, that's why this bot, because you have to hear it a disproportionate amount of time. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I've heard it a billion trillion times.
Not to the guy who asked why does Theo keep saying?
No, I get it. Like I get where you're coming from. I should
honestly give him a piece of my mind for that. Because that question has done irreparable damage to the Zoomer bird watcher community.
We need to go to the combine next year just so that you can, the next time someone asks, like, have you ever seen a baby pigeon? You have to stand up and be like, birds are real.
Actually, everybody's seen a first-year juvenile pigeon. You just don't realize how young they are. And obviously, you're not going to see a baby one because they're in a nest up high.
I haven't seen many baby birds at all.
That's what I'm saying. Have you, like...
It's because they're in the nest, dude. Like, how often are you like up in the trees climbing around? Like, and by the time they are out of the nest, they look like an adult bird to the layman. They would look like an adult bird. But
to the trained eye of Theo,
to the trained eye,
I'll go to the combine and I'll wait for them to say that joke, and I'll say, "Sir, you are a moron. Sir, you are stupid."
I'll go outside and be like, this pigeon is quite young right here. So anyway.
You're gonna pick up a pigeon.
I just got a text from a scout. Oh my God, this kid is an idiot. Wow. He's moving down my board.
I got a test. Anyway, now we can. Now that I've gone through all my asides, we can now wrap.
Yes, now we can wrap up. Again, reminder: we'll be live on Tuesday. Take a look at Quinyon Mitchell. We'll have another episode later this week going over another division, taking a look at blueprints for those teams, and then of course we'll get back to the draft prospect stuff next week. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and as always, from the Stay Hot crew, we will catch you on the flippity flop.